All right, question number 2. This is from Con. That's at C_Mahoney23. Coming up at the halfway point of the season, which teams have you changed your opinion the most on? Any new dark horses for the playoffs? Who's the most overrated? Well, I would say the team that I've changed my opinion on the most is the Washington Commanders. And it's not that I didn't think Dan Quinn and Adam Peters were capable of doing the job there. I've been high on those two since the minute they got the job. I think they're exactly what the organization needs, some new energy in the building. Adam Peters obviously was an integral part to building the 49ers roster that's been so good over the last few years. And I think Dan Quinn's really gone back and taken a good look at what went wrong for him in Atlanta. And remember, he made it to a Super Bowl as a head coach and was very close to winning a championship as a head coach. And we saw it with some of the adjustments that he made to his coaching style, to his scheme in Dallas. And so I think they had a really good chance from the beginning based on where they'd been, some of the lessons they'd learned, some of the things that they'd observed. And I do think the staff that Dan Quinn put together was well conceived, bringing Joe Witt with him from Dallas to be his defensive coordinator, bringing in Cliff Kingsbury. But on no planet did I think that they were going to be 5-1 going into Week 8. I'm pretty unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish. And I think one of the best ways to illustrate that is actually by looking at one of the moves they made on Tuesday, which was they cut Jamin Davis, who was their first-round pick a couple of years ago. And with that move, now you take the period from 2019 to 2022. They had 5 first-round picks in that 4-year period. All 5 of those first-round picks are gone. 3 were traded. 2 were cut. 4 of those 5 were taken in the top 20. Of those 4, none of them got more than a third-round pick back in a trade. So just an absolute disaster from a draft standpoint. That left significant holes in the roster. And coming in, Dan Quinn and Adam Peters didn't just have a hole at quarterback. They had a hole at like almost every premium position on the roster. They didn't have a left tackle. They didn't have edge rushers. They didn't have corners outside of Emmanuel Forbes, who was in a bit of disrepair after being a first-round pick and really having a disappointing rookie year. And then at receiver, they had Terry McLaurin, who's very, very reliable and a really, really good player, but not a whole lot else. So once they decided to spend the second overall pick on a quarterback, it seemed like they were going to have to live with some of those holes over the course of the 2024 season, which is why I thought you looked at it and you said, okay, this is going to be like Dan Campbell's first year in Detroit, where you're trying to establish a program, but it might not show up in the wins and losses. And yet it has shown up in the wins and losses. And Jaden Daniels has done such a good job and deserves such a huge piece of the credit here, but he's not the only one. They found a way to make it work at left tackle with Lucas and with Coleman, who's a rookie on the roster. They've made it work with Mikey Sandersill and Forbes at corner. Forbes has still been up and down, but they've managed that. They've made it work at the edge rusher positions by bringing in guys they know who aren't superstars, but Cleveland Farrell comes over from San Francisco with Adam Peters, and Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler come with Dan Quinn from Dallas. And it's good enough for right now. Like, are these guys answers for the next 5 or 10 years at those positions? No, but they've made it work. And I'm just so impressed with everything that's going on in Washington now. And you look at the draft pick haul that they have going forward. You look at the salary cap situation. And then you look at the quarterback that they're going to be building around. This looks like a franchise that's very much going to be on the way up over the next few years. So those are the teams that's probably changed my opinion the most. As for the most overrated, I think it'd be hard to say it's anybody but the Commanders' NFC East rivals down in Dallas. Expectations were very high in Dallas going into the year, and rightfully so. They've won 12 games 3 years in a row. They send Mike McCarthy into a contract year. They don't do new deals with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb until the summer. The owner turns the heat up by saying they're all in for this year, even though they weren't big spenders, big dice rollers when it comes to veteran acquisitions in the offseason. So to see where they are right now, to see them having fallen out of the NFC East race a bit, to see them, in this position where every game now is critical, I think is surprising to a lot of people, myself included. I thought they'd be a playoff team. Right now, it doesn't look like it. It'll be interesting to see where they go going forward. But I'd say they were probably the most overrated team if you look at where people like me and others who are in positions to make prognostications that so often don't come true. I think that they are the team that probably qualify as the most overrated.